Welcome, everybody. Thanks, you two, for setting this all up. And James, I had somebody else who was going to come and do what James did, but she's sick, so James stepped in, and I appreciate that very much.
Can't see you. A bit shorter than James.
I combed my hair and everything. Okay, scripture reading today, Luke 6:27 to 38. But I say to you that listen, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who abuse you. If anyone strikes you on the cheek, offer him the other also. And from anyone who takes away your coat, do not withhold even your shirt. Give to everyone who begs from you, and if anyone takes away your goods, do not ask for them again. Do to others as you would have them do to you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. If you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. If you lend to those from whom you hope to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners to receive as much again. But love your enemies, do good and lend, expecting nothing in return. Your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, for He is kind to ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful just as your Father is merciful. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. For the measure you give will be the measure you get back. Good luck with that. Okie dokie. We'll start with, let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. The preacher's Sunday sermon was forgive your enemies. I think I've given this sermon before, but I couldn't remember it, and hopefully you won't remember it, but you got to get it again. Forgive your enemies. And he asked the congregation how many had forgiven their enemies, and about half of them held up their hand. He then went on to give his sermon, and after which he repeated his question. All responded except for one little elderly lady. Mrs. Jones, are you not willing to forgive your enemies? I don't have any, she said. Mrs. Jones, that is very unusual. How old are you? 93, she replied. Mrs. Jones, please come down to the front and tell the congregation how a person cannot have an enemy in the world. And the sweet little old lady tottered down the aisle and said, I don't have any enemies because I outlived all the SOBs. Well, that's one way to do it, but it makes for a pretty painful life up to that point. And I hope we can discover together a better and quicker way to a more peaceful existence. I spent several years thinking about some of the things I wanted to say this morning, and I wrote this sermon for me, really. If it touches you in any way, it's a bonus. Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. As you all know, Jesus said that on the cross. I wonder why he didn't say, Father, I forgive them, because they don't know what they're doing. The conclusion, and I may be wrong, is that Jesus knew about forgiveness. That was what he came to teach us. Love and forgiveness. His dad, on the other hand, had never been big on forgiveness. Right from the start, the Garden of Eden, after he made Adam and Eve, and he gave them the gift of choice, things started to go seriously wrong. They made the wrong choice, apparently. God threw them out of the garden. And it was pretty much like that for the next several thousand years. Now, my children, you have free will, but you'd better do it my way, or things are going to go badly for you. God even gave them a set of rules to follow, and occasionally he'd be very nice to them. I guess he thought that would shape them up. Expectations and manipulations. Ever tried that? How'd it go? Things in heaven must have been pretty confused and sad, what with people not shaping up. Then one day Jesus said, "Dad, you've tried it your way for a pretty long time. It doesn't seem to be working out. How about if I try a new way? I'm going to try and teach them about love for each other and forgiveness for its own sake." So Jesus came down with the new message which he lived. The ending of that experiment didn't go very well either, but I'm pretty sure Jesus didn't die with a resentment against those who killed him. He said as much. He had a pretty good idea of the humans he was dealing with and was hoping that if just a few got the message, they would spread it, and they have. Not all have heard the message of love and forgiveness, and those who have heard it cannot always practice what they preach. Why? Because we're only human beings who are, to some extent, emotionally ill, as well as frequently wrong. What are resentments anyway, and why are they so potentially devastating to us? First of all, it is something that happened in the past, real or imagined, that damaged us physically, mentally, or spiritually. Often we've had a part in that occurrence, although we'd rather not look at our part. We have dragged that event into the present and continue to let it color our outlook on life to some extent. We tend to revisit the event, mulling it over, making up little theatrical productions in which we manage to make an event in the past turn out differently, usually better for us and worse for them. When I'm in one of these productions and someone else interacts with me, the malice I am feeling boils over and scorches them. Thus my resentment can grow because the old situation has damaged the present one, and now maybe I feel guilty as well as mad. Resentment is like a rock thrown into water of a still pond. The ripples will touch all within its path, disturbing their lives as well as my own. Sometimes the resentment recedes for a while, and I have some peace. But if I haven't forgiven the person, place, or thing, or accepted my part in it, the resentment will come back. It's like picking off a scab to see how it's healing you. How does that work? Why do I have resentments in the first place? I believe it's because I have expectations about a person or an event that are not met to my satisfaction. Some of these expectations are certainly valid, like a safe childhood, faithful spouse, good children, and thoughtful neighbors. We all know that even though these are wished for, things don't always turn out that way. What do I do with that experience? Here lies the rub. Do I take my disappointment out on myself by using that event as an excuse to not be the best me I can, or on those around me for their perceived part in the event? Or can I learn something from the event that will enrich my life and the lives of those around me? I have a choice. How I use that event, positively or negatively, will influence how I see myself and how I treat others. We all have people in our lives who rub us the wrong way. My reaction to them depends on my spiritual condition. Let's give you an example. Say I'm driving to Sedgwick and I pass someone I know and I give them a wave and they ignore me. How do I react? If I'm having a good day, it may occur to me that perhaps something bad had happened to them and that I may be of service. If I'm having a bad day, my thoughts will be completely different and I'll be hurt and offended. Ever drive along with your mind on something? Usually I'm remodeling some house. People drive by me and I'm sure I don't notice them because my mind is elsewhere. Nothing to do with them. If I can do that, I assume others can too. Resentment material? Only if I choose to make it so. The worst thing about resentments is all the useless time they take up in my head. I hate to let someone live there rent-free. It upsets my stomach, makes my blood boil, and just generally shuts me off from the sunlight of the Spirit and the good things that are happening around me in the present. If you like feeling angry and frustrated, don't bother listening to the rest of this sermon, because it is about what I have learned to try and kick the resentment habit. Forgiveness of others is my gift to myself, first and foremost. Perhaps I cannot and should not forget the deed, but I must forgive the doer of the deed. I cannot give that person the power to ruin my day and how I interact with others. I try to remember that I have hurt people too, sometimes on purpose and sometimes inadvertently. Since I am only responsible for myself, can I truly say I'm sorry afterwards? What are my expectations of the other person when I ask for forgiveness? It's not that much longer, folks. How about when someone comes to me and says, I forgive you? Wait a minute. Can I stop and think, was I wrong? Did I mean to be hurtful? Can I be humble enough to say I'm truly sorry? The line in the Lord's Prayer is, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. That word as is worth pondering. Jesus said something along the lines of, how can you say you love God whom you haven't seen and keep on hating your brother whom you have seen? There are some resentments that cannot be worked on without God's help. And I was given a suggestion to pray for the people whom I have resentments against. I could start out by not even meaning it, to just do it. I was going to share a little something that happened to me. When I was living in Whitehorse, I was living at married housing up at the base, and it was built in the 40s, no insulation, right? So my bed is frozen to the wall. I wake up at 3 in the morning, and there's all these people in my head who I like or don't like, or people who haven't treated me well. And I'm thinking, shh, I gotta go back to sleep, and I can't because I'm, taking their inventories. And I thought, what can I do? What can I do? So I decided, fortunately, living in Whitehorse, they had a Timmy's, and it was open 24 hours a day. So I sent all the boys to Timmy's for coffee. I have a coffee and a donut, amuse yourself, stay as long as you want, take the truck. And then I just lay there and counted from 1 to 12, really slowly. And about the second time through, I think, well, this is stupid. And the next thing I knew, it was morning. So I was like, whew, that's been like 25 years ago. The next day I went to a meeting, and I told about this. I couldn't wait to get there and tell them about this great solution to what do you do in the wake in the middle of the night? You can't get back to sleep. And so I told these people. Next night, a guy came to me, he said, that really worked. I went home and I said, I can't be hungry, angry, lazy, or tired. He said, I cleaned my whole house. And everybody laughed because I was supposed to be lonely, but he put in lazy, and that worked for him, so do whatever works for you. Anyway, so when I moved back down here, and this thing still happened. Still people piss you off, and you have to, figure out how to deal with that. So I decided that the Esso in Viking is open 24 hours a day. So now I tell the voices at 3 in the morning, take the truck, go to Esso in Viking, get a coffee, get a muffin, amuse yourselves, take as long as you want. And I do that 1 through 12 really slowly. Still works. I give it as a suggestion. I know it sounds stupid, but do it. Well, or don't, whatever. But it has been so helpful to me over and over and over. Because you can't solve a problem at 3 in the morning. Nothing. You just get back to sleep, so maybe you've got some energy for tomorrow. Anyway, that's that story. I quite like that, and I wanted to share it. So I try to remember how taking people's inventory worked in the past, and put the present offenders on my own private prayer list. And anytime I feel a curtain going up on one of my little productions, I say, God, I ask you to put in their name, all the good stuff that I wish for myself. Doesn't always work, but I keep practicing because I don't like feeling cranky. Resentments are the acid that eat at my soul, and forgiveness is the Pepto-Bismol that brings relief. Try saying, God bless her or him of anyone who is in disharmony with you. Also say it of those who are troubled through their own fault. Say it, willing that showers of blessings may fall upon them. Let God do the blessing, Leave to God the necessary correcting or disciplining. We should only desire blessing for them. Leave God's work to God. Let's try to occupy ourselves with the task that He gives us to do. God's blessing will also break down all our own difficulties and build up all our successes. Now, this is a prayer that comes out of my own other literature. God, I offer myself to you to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy love, thy power, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Amen. That's it, troops. Let's see where we go from here. Not it.